Last week, they released a performance points change that shook up the PP meta significantly. It shook it up so much, in fact, that a PP hotfix was released to try to tweak some of the obvious pitfalls of the new system. Sliders effectively got nerfed from being totally crazy broken to being just slightly broken. The wiki page states that scores on slider aim heavy maps will now be rated lower if they are very likely to have dropped slider ends, which basically invalidates my point that you can kind of cheese these patterns a little bit if you have to without dropping a combo, because missing slider ends on these slider heavy maps will tank the PP that you will receive significantly. Plays that relied on cheesing these fast sliders, like Fire Rage's State of Mind play goes from about 900 PP to 650, and Badoo's Hitoga play goes from about 750 to 500. This change basically makes these maps not that viable for the everyday person to farm due to the high reliance on this tactic. Fret not though, there are still some maps that were buffed that aren't reliant on the huge slider buff. All these maps have the same general theme in common. They are all maps that have rhythm complexity to a degree, while not being too hard for its respective skill level. Because of a great recommendation from a comment in the last video, I will attempt to cover all sorts of skill levels, from 100 PP beginner level plays to the top end 600 PP plays, so there's something for everyone to try. These first few maps are the perfect beginner maps to play, not only because they are still getting buffed, but because it is a great introduction into developing the finger control needed to play the rest of these maps. This difficulty of Nippon Egao has a little bit of stream patterns that have a single note pause in them, along with triples and streams that start on the offbeat after a slider, both of which are now better weighted in the PP system. Alongside its short TV size, it is a very approachable map. Rather you can play it no mod, or even double time. Crime Wave does a lot of what Nippon does, but on a longer scale, and with more stop and start patterning. They are manageable bursts throughout with a few double patterns thrown in for good measure. The 15% PP buff is a great present to all of those who decide to play through this map. Luna is a more standard long aim map compared to the others on this list. Its buff comes from the solo, which has a pretty intense finger control section thrown in there very late into the map. A 15% PP buff to a song that really only has one super hard finger control section seems to be a great fit for a more farmable experience. This is also a great map to work on maintaining your finger control through your nerves by trying not to drop a ton of accuracy through the solo. Now we are getting towards the maps that are really leaning into the finger control strain that buffs these maps so much. Throughout its 5-minute runtime, you will find all sorts of rhythmically cut streams alongside a plethora of bursts that change its length constantly. With a 20% PP gain from the rework even after the slider nerf, this definitely should be an idea to play if you have developed the skill sets to stay consistent across a long song like this. If Judgment had too much aim for your taste, this might be more of your map. Or the Flood is very dense in its stamina draining stream patterns that change in numerical length constantly at a very fast tempo. With an astronomical 23% increase in the PP that it gives, it would be a disgrace if this map did not make it on this list. Now I would consider this to be the final boss of the sub 300 PP scores for the finger control aspect to be buffed. This map egregiously uses doubles, funky rhythms, and anything else of the sort to receive its 15% PP increase from the rework. There are even a few awkward slider jumps in this song, but nothing impactful enough for you to have to stress about missing slider ends, tanking the PP you get from this score. I'm so glad that this is finally getting the limelight it deserves. We are getting into the heavy hitters now. Solar Sect plays a lot like a jacked version of Judgment, with basically everything cranked up a little bit. More streams, more finger control, and a higher OD of 9 to boot. Many would say that if you're able to play this map, you have mastered the art of the double, due to his presence all throughout the map. Before we go over the last song, I wanted to take a second and mention the 2 songs from my first video that don't absolutely get destroyed by the Slider Hotfix, these 2 being Relieve and Slow Motion. Both of these maps are not hit at all from the hotfix, with the PP values not really changing at all. The cool part about both of these songs is that these are decently viable to play both with no mod or double time depending on your current skill level. Go check out my other video about this rework if you're interested in learning more about these maps. I could have made a whole video talking about how every goreshit map in existence is getting buffed by some capacity, but this map takes the cake in terms of how buffed it gets. Gaining a whopping 63 PP, Benzo is the upper echelon of what farmy finger control patterns can be. This is the fastest no-mod map of the list, clocking in at 197 BPM, and at this BPM, standard becomes a much harder thing to maintain across the brutal finger control patterns that do not let up for a whole 5-minute runtime. While you have to work hard to get your skills up to this point, the reward is so worth it in the end. Hey guys, I guess this is my attempt at making a not cheesy outro. It's currently 3 AM, I'm doing my final recordings of stuff before I put this out, as soon as I finish rendering and uploading it. And I just want to say I did not expect my last video to do so well. So I'm just, if you're here, you're a real one, especially listening to this rambling piece of stuff. So I guess since you're here, tell me what you want to see from me in terms of content. Is there like something you want me to talk about? Do you want me to I'm thinking about doing a series where I go over PP maps, but maybe that's not what you guys want to see? I don't know, let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. God, I sound like an actual YouTuber now, you know. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that stuff to put me back in the algorithm. Anyway, guess I have nothing else to say. Bye.